The thirsty old man, just having purchased a bottle of liquor from a vending machine, suddenly noticed a man beside him clutching his head, writhing in pain as he collapsed to the ground. He thought of seeking help, but to his dismay, he found others in the streets suffering the same fate. What was more terrifying was a blonde woman emerging from a car, who poured gasoline over herself and, in front of him, set herself on fire. The old man, struck by fear, stood petrified. In a matter of moments, the street was covered with bodies, a scene of a virus more dreadful than Ebola. With a fatality rate of 100%, it spread through the air, causing infected individuals to uncontrollably harm themselves. Within hours, it could turn a small town into a landscape of death. The cause of this disaster turned out to be a young couple stargazing in the wilderness. Suddenly, a meteorite fell from the sky, landing not far from them. Approaching, they discovered it was actually satellite debris. Treating it like a valuable treasure, they brought it back to the town, unaware of the impending doom it would bring. By the time military personnel arrived at the scene, all that was left was a deep crater from the satellite. Fortunately, using the signal from the satellite, they were able to pinpoint its location. Two soldiers immediately drove towards the small town located directly below. By then, the satellite debris had been taken to the town's fire station. The knowledgeable fire chief assumed it was a regular communications satellite and decided to open it for study, unaware that within half an hour, a terrible event would unfold. When the two soldiers, following the signal, arrived at the town, it had already turned into a city of death. Bodies lay haphazardly in the streets, enveloped in the aura of death, their faces marked with clearly visible blood vessels. The old man, seeing living people, ran out like grabbing a lifeline, seeking help. But before he could even ask what had happened, the soldier at the wheel suddenly began to writhe in agony and died at the steering wheel. The other soldier also met a gruesome end the moment he opened the door. Soon after, the military headquarters, realizing the severity of the situation from the dying soldier's last footage, determined that the town was hit by an unknown virus. For safety, they quickly ordered the town to be quarantined and dispatched drones to investigate. Meanwhile, George, head of the military's biodefense department, swiftly gathered a team of virus experts to uncover the truth behind the incident. After briefly explaining their mission, George played a death video showing the two soldiers dying before they could even leave their vehicle, a testament to the virus's horror. Not only was it airborne, but it also had virtually no incubation period, making infection almost certainly fatal. They named this virus the Andromeda Strain. George then showed thermal images from the drone, but biologist Angela noticed something odd. The bodies near the car seemed to have been moved. Comparing thermal images from two different times confirmed her suspicion. Could there be survivors in the town? Suited up in protective gear, the experts decided to go to the scene to investigate and possibly find any survivors. However, upon arriving over the town, they discovered numerous crows feasting on the infected corpses. The virus didn't kill birds but made them carriers. It was imperative to prevent them from leaving the town. Thus, the helicopter immediately sprayed pesticide, killing all the birds in town. Then, the three experts parachuted down to start their investigation. They quickly noticed a strange phenomenon. All the bodies had external injuries but no blood spillage. Driving the soldiers' jeep, they followed the satellite's coordinates to the fire station and found the open satellite debris. They restored the open casing, planning to take it back for research. Meanwhile, Angela examined a body and found that the blood flowing from a cut arm had turned to powder. No wonder the bodies they had seen earlier had no blood. The virus had altered the blood itself. Subsequently, as the three searched for survivors, they came upon a store and witnessed a horrifying scene. A dismembered corpse lay on the ground, and in the surveillance footage, they watched the man's death unfold. Unbelievably, it was he who had walked into the supermarket with a chainsaw and decapitated himself. Driven to self-harm by the virus, Bill suggested they should just use nuclear weapons to destroy the town, an approach that was not only efficient but would also eradicate the source of the virus. Everyone agreed, unwilling to risk further investigation, except for Dr. Stone and Angela, who opposed it. After all, a survivor was still unaccounted for, and they could potentially use him to find an antibody to the virus. Plus, it was uncertain whether a nuclear bomb would be effective. Amidst their argument, Angela suddenly heard the cry of a baby. Following the sound, they found an infant, just a few months old, in a car. His mother turned into a cold corpse. The group decided to leave immediately with the satellite and the baby, but just as they were about to board the plane, an old man suddenly charged at them. Without a word, he attacked Bill, but fortunately, Stone quickly intervened to stop him. This was the survivor they had been looking for. They immediately took him with them as they left the town, planning to bring him back to the lab. Unbeknownst to them, a virus-infected dog remained on the streets, a hidden threat for future spread of the virus. Soon, they returned to the lab, designed for handling complex biochemical viral incidents. Before entering, they had to undergo full-body disinfection, drink oral antibiotics as a preventive measure against infection, confirm their identities with retinal scans, and undergo a thorough 360-degree, naked cleaning, from inside out. They were thoroughly decontaminated to prevent any accidents. Moreover, in case of a virus leak, they had a contingency plan. The lab, located underground, was built over a small nuclear reactor. If an uncontrollable event occurred, the safety system would activate an auto-destruct mechanism, leveling the lab in 15 minutes. Upon hearing this, everyone panicked, but Stone reassured them that Bill could deactivate the self-destruct sequence. This emergency measure was put in place after extensive testing by the military, with Bill being the only one capable of deactivating it. Meanwhile, George had proposed to the president to drop a nuclear bomb on the town, but the president, facing an upcoming election, did not want to negatively impact his campaign, so he decided to give Dr. Stone some time to find a better solution. Back in the lab, they quickly began examining the satellite, confirming that the virus originated from within it. The satellite appeared not as a regular satellite but more like a biocontainment device, designed to capture and preserve a particular life form. George kept this information from them, indicating the military was hiding something. Upon reopening the satellite, they found a black substance inside, which turned out to be the Andromeda Strain. Upon testing, the old man on the hospital bed finally woke up, and from his account, Angela learned how the events unfolded. However, why he was not infected remained a mystery. The old man himself was baffled, having been drinking at the time and thinking it was all a hallucination, only to realize it had all really happened. Angela had a bold theory. Could his drinking have saved him? But this theory was quickly dismissed, as the infants certainly hadn't been drinking. They had to study the Andromeda strain again and made a startling discovery. The strain had no DNA, proteins, or even basic amino acids. It was impossible for such a strain to exist on Earth and was likely of cosmic origin. George finally revealed the truth under their questioning. Indeed, the Andromeda strain came from space. They had discovered a wormhole in the solar system. So, a satellite was launched to observe and collect non-earthly biological samples for research. Unexpectedly, the satellite crashed into the town, and the military chose to conceal this to avoid panic. Unbeknownst to them, the virus had already started spreading. A virus-carrying dog was killed by the virus in the wild, and the crows that appeared next became new carriers. Soon, an incident occurred in a bar outside the town. A policeman walked in, grabbed the barmaid's hand, and then shot everyone in the bar dead. Just as the barmaid thought she would be next, the policeman turned the gun on himself, clearly infected by the Andromeda strain. Moreover, a similar incident of virus infection occurred at a distant observatory. An eagle appeared in the sky and dropped a virus-infected rat among the soldiers. They didn't realize the danger, finding the eagle's behavior amusing. Unexpectedly, a soldier kicked the rat and immediately suffered an excruciating headache, collapsing and dying on the spot. The others, unaware of what was happening, also showed the same symptoms. In desperation, one soldier went mad and started shooting at his comrades. Another soldier had no choice but to shoot him dead. But before they could recover, the remaining soldiers also began to turn on each other, some even turning their guns on themselves. A soldier hastily left in a jeep, but by the time he reached the military camp, his demeanor had also changed, running amok in the camp and nearing a restricted area. The commanding officer had no choice but to order him shot dead. George heard of the incident and immediately reported it to his superiors, once again requesting the president to authorize a nuclear strike. To prevent further escalation, the president, after brief hesitation, agreed. A fighter jet carrying a nuclear bomb soon took off. However, just as the pilot was about to arm the bomb, the lab made a new discovery. Analysis of the Andromeda strain's growth environment revealed that it could absorb nuclear radiation. This meant that a nuclear bomb would not only fail to destroy it but would actually help it thrive. Stone urgently called George and explained the situation to the president via video conference. Fortunately, 1 second before the launch, the pilot received an order to abort the mission. Everyone sighed in relief as he disarmed the bomb and turned back. But then, a mishap occurred. The pilot discovered the jet was out of control, something visibly corroding his visor. The disarmed bomb had been reactivated and dropped. resulting in a crash and an explosion. The virus became uncontrollable under the nuclear blast. From the video transmitted before the crash, they saw the pilot's helmet rapidly dissolving. A microorganism capable of dissolving a plastic helmet could do the same to others, suggesting the virus had mutated. The burning corpses carried it into the air. Even more terrifying was the appearance of numerous animal corpses outside the blast area, indicating the virus was expanding its infection range. The military had no choice but to spray pesticide in the infected area, killing all birds and animals to prevent further spread. In the lab, Angela discovered that some people infected with the virus didn't die immediately but showed violent behavior, like the policeman in the bar. Both the old man and the baby had similar conditions. Their bodies' acidosis, caused by various reasons, had luckily kept them alive until now. It seemed the Andromeda strain could only survive within a specific pH range, but this pH range was lethal to humans, so this method couldn't be used to combat the virus. If the acid inhibited the virus during infection, the Andromeda strain would attack the brain, causing cerebral hemorrhage in the infected person. This was why some people resorted to self-harm. To find other methods to kill the Andromeda strain, Stone began experimenting with various bacteriophages. Soon, they found that one bacteriophage could perfectly inhibit the virus. But in the next experiment, the bacteriophage suddenly failed. Stone was astonished. As this was a completely different group of the Andromeda strain, he deduced that the strain was not only evolving rapidly but also seemed to possess its own consciousness. When they realized the threat was evolving immediately, the experts knew they had limited time as the virus was spreading rapidly with the wind. If it contaminated an international flight, the consequences would be unimaginable. They could only shut down flights and evacuate all civilians along the way. At this critical moment of life and death, the researchers finally made a breakthrough. They scanned the black substance in the satellite again and discovered it contained not only the pathogen but also two other elements. Analyzing the molecular structure of these elements, they uncovered a binary code hidden within. Combining this with the previously discovered wormhole led them to a bold idea. The virus might not be from space, but from the future of humanity. They were likely trying to transmit a message using the binary code. Decoded, the code was a string of numbers and a word, translated as subterranean bacillus. This rare bacterium existed only in one place on Earth, deep in the ocean at 3,000 meters near hydrothermal vents. It thrived in harsh acidic environments, feeding on sulfur-rich effluents from the vents. The chemical composition of the Andromeda strain was sulfur-based, meaning the subterranean bacillus could consume it as food. Perhaps humans in the future also faced the Andromeda strain but no longer had subterranean bacillus. So, they sent this message through the wormhole, aiming to ensure current humanity preserved the bacterium. The team immediately reported this to the president, who dispatched a sample of the bacterium, which the US government had been mining. The lab started creating an antidote using the sample. However, soldiers in the infected area were attacked by a swarm of virus-carrying crows, instantly killing an entire squad. Some bodies rolled into a nearby river, and the crows fell in two, contaminating the water and killing numerous aquatic creatures. The virus seemed to have evolved again, no longer needing animals to spread. It started moving downstream through waterways and also spreading on land. Fortunately, the lab successfully developed an antidote using the subterranean bacillus after experiments and tests. Led by George, the military rushed to the lab in helicopters. After loading the antidote, they began spraying it over the infected areas. As expected, the Andromeda strain that came into contact with the antidote was immediately destroyed. But just when everyone thought the crisis was averted, a virus leak occurred in the lab, and the self-destruct system was automatically activated. Someone had secretly hidden a vial of the virus sample, planning to smuggle it out, leading to the leak. Someone in the government didn't want the Andromeda strain to disappear completely, as it was the most terrifying biochemical weapon. With it, they could dominate the world. So, they secretly sent someone to coerce an employee into stealing a vial by threatening her family. Worse, the flash caused Joe to have an epileptic seizure, damaging the electronic panel that could deactivate the self-destruct. Now, to deactivate it, they had to go to another floor. With the elevator out of service, Bill and Stone had to climb through the central shaft. Tragically, Bill accidentally fell into the nuclear reactor's water and died instantly. Only his fingerprint could deactivate the self-destruct. Joe, regaining consciousness, bravely climbed down the shaft. Ignoring the danger, he jumped into the heavy water, cut off Bill's finger, and threw it to Stone before losing consciousness due to radiation. Fortunately, Stone managed to reach the upper floor and deactivate the self-destruct. Meanwhile, George and his team finally killed all the infected patients.